أستاذ علي إبراهيم
was solved for computing u respect x for some step size and for some u. In this session, we are trying to construct the finite different approximation for partial derivatives, and then we use all of them to discretization of partial differential equations. We can use the Taylor's theorem for partial derivatives. For this purpose, we should suppose that t is constant, and we apply the Taylor's theorem with respect x. In 2.5, that can you see in this page?
Yes.
You can see we have u of u at t and x0 plus delta x equal to u of t and x0 plus delta x u respect x at t and x0 plus delta x 2 over 2 factorial uxx at t and x0 plus continue and then plus delta x power n minus 1 over n minus 1 factorial and u respect we say again, repeat again. Today we try to construct finite difference approximation to partial derivatives. At the previous session, we construct the finite difference approximation to ordinary derivatives. But this session, we try to construct finite difference approximation to partial derivatives. It is possible only we suppose that if u is of t and x, we suppose that t is constant and we apply the Taylor's theorem respect to x. As you can see at this page, 2.5a, u of t and x0 plus delta ex, we suppose that t is constant and we want to apply the Taylor's theorem respect to x, and we have u of t and x0 plus delta x equal to u of t and x0 plus delta x u respect x at t and x0 plus delta x power 2 over 2 factorials, then that uxx, its partial derivative, second partial derivative of u respect x at t and x0, plus continue these terms until plus delta x power n minus 1 over n minus 1 factorial. U subindex subscript n minus 1, this term means n minus 1 derivatives of u respect x at t and x0 plus O of delta xn. O of delta xn means the rest the rest sentences is order of delta x power n. This is the partial version of Taylor's theorem, and as again at this formula, the t should be constant. Truncating error of this formula is O of delta x2 because we use only the use two terms of the right hand side of Taylor's theorem. If we use only two terms of the right hand side of Taylor formula, we have the truncating error is order of 2 O of delta x2. But in general, at 2.5a, the truncation error is the order of delta x and not delta x2. Then we remain the n first terms at Taylor theorem. We have the rest sentences of the Taylor theorem is order of delta xn. But when we have two terms of delta two terms of Taylor theorem, the truncating error is of delta x2. When we have rest three terms of Taylor theorem, we have the truncating error of order of O of delta x3. It's okay. So by this theorem, we have u at t and x0, 0 plus delta x equal to u at t and x0 plus delta x, u of x at t and x0 plus O delta x2, O of delta x2 is the order of truncating error. If we have a three term of the right hand side of the 2.5a, we have u at t and x0 plus delta x equal to u at t and x0 plus delta x u respect x at t and x0, and the next term is delta x power 2 over 2 factorial u xx at x0 plus O of delta x3. Is it okay? When we use two terms of the Taylor theorem, the truncating error is O of delta x2. If we use the three terms of the right-hand side of Taylor theorem, the truncating error is of delta x3. If we use four terms of Taylor series, the truncating error is of O of delta x4 and etc. Is it okay?
Okay.
میس زینب، خانم زینب طالب، من بچه‌ها اینو میخوام در واقع بگم که در قضیه تیلور اگر ما 2 جمله نگه داریم خطای ما از مرتبه 2 میشه. اگر 3 جمله نگه داریم خطا اوی دلتا ایکس 3 هست. اگر 4 جمله نگه داریم خطای ما اوی ایکس 4 هست و به همین ترتیب ادامه پیدا میکنه. میشه لطفاً این رو براشون ترجمه کنید که بهتر متوجه بشن؟ خانم طالب هستین سر کلاس؟
بله یه لحظه. ببخشین اوی دلتا ایکس منظورتون به همون خطاه نه؟
خطا نه، مرتبه خطا. این در خطای ما دلتا ایکس 2 ظاهر میشه. اگه 3 جمله نگه داریم خطای برشی مرتبه 3 میشه. اوی دلتا ایکس 3 هست. اگه 4 جمله نگه داریم خطای ما اوی دلتا ایکس 4 میگیم خطای برشی از مرتبه 4 میشه در قضیه تیلور.
اوکی. اساتذة حسب قانون تايلر اللي عندنا موجود هو هنا انت مطينا ابو اليو للتي للاكس نوت زائد دلتا اكس مطينا اياها. اذا يقول لك الخطا مالت المرتبه مالت مرتبه الخطا اذا حسب المن دلتا اكس تربيع، اذا مرتبتين يريد دلتا تربيع، اذا 3 مراتب يريد نزودهن يصير على 2 فاكتوريال ودلتا اكس تكعيب، واذا 4 مراتب نزودهن واحدة حسب قانون اللي موجود هناك اللي فوق عندنا.
Is it okay for all of them?
هذا القانون الموجود اللي فوق بالأحمر هسه هي مؤشرته تطبق عليه مثلا إذا دلتا اكس ان إذا كان تربيع وإذا كان تكعيب ولا أس 4 تزود لها كل واحد حسب الان اللي موجود بالقانون. اوكي.
Okay. The general formula is the 2.5a. It is general. Please attention to this formula.
Okay.
At 2.5, it 2.5 and is the general form of Taylor series, Taylor's theorem. You can see at this formula, u, the first term is u, the second term is u respect x, the first derivative of u respect x. The third term is uxx, means the second derivative of u respect x, and the fourth term is delta. I have been said that the 2.5a is general, and the first term is u of t and x0. U is the first term. The second term is of ux, means the derivative of u respect x. The third term of Taylor's theorem is of uxx, means the second derivative of u respect x. And the fourth term is of uxxx, or third derivative of u respect delta x power n-1 over n-1 factorial. U n-1 means the n-1 derivative of u respect x, and until u subindex n-1 is the n term of Taylor series, and the truncating error is of O of delta xn. In 2.5b, we use only 2 terms of the 2.5a, and we have u at t and x0 plus delta x equal to u at t and x0 plus delta x, u of x at t and x0 plus o of delta x2. Why O of delta x2? Because we can use only two terms of Taylor theorem, okay? We can use only two terms of Taylor series, and the truncating error is of O of delta x2. Is it okay? By rearranging the 2.5b and find the u of x at t and x0, we have ux, u respect x means the first derivative of u respect x at t and x0 equal to u at t and x0 plus delta x minus u at t and x0 over delta x minus O of delta x2 over delta x. Because we have O of delta x2 over delta x in this fraction is simplified, and we have O of delta x. This is a first approximation for the first derivative of u respect x, and we have ux at t and x0 is approximate by u at t and x0 plus delta x minus u at t and x0 over delta x. Is the approximate formula for approximate the first derivative of u respect x, and we can use this formula for computing the derivative of u. It's okay. Similar to the last session about ODE, when we use the Taylor theorem for the ODE, means the use for the function of one variables. But in this session, the u is of two variables, t and x, and t is constant, but x not constant, and we change x from x0 to x0 plus delta x. Okay? Is it okay? It's the first derivative for u. طالب به بچه‌ها این رو میخوام بهشون بگم که این یک فرمول محاسبه مشتق هستش برای تابع یو که دو متغیره هست. در جلسه قبل یو یک متغیره بود، ما باش مثالم حل کردیم. در این جلسه یو دو متغیره هست. ببینید هم t داره هم x داره، درسته؟ حالا ما میام چیکار میکنیم؟ بر حسب x میام قضیه تیلور رو براش به کار میگیریم، مثل جلسه قبله، فقط تو یو دو متغیره هست اینجا، بقیهش فعلا فرقی نداره.
تقول هاي موضوعنا اليوم نفس قانون ذاك الأسبوع، بس ذاك الأسبوع كان عندنا متغير واحد بدلالة x، بس اليوم عندنا متغير مو بس x نوت، عندنا وياهم من ضمنها t، يعني عندنا متغيرين. وهذا قانون بالنسبة للمشتقة اللي شنو عندنا متغيرين، يعني t و x نوت. هذا قانون إن إذا كانت المشتقة بدلالة متغيرين بالنسبة لتايلور.
Please attention. You suppose that this point is x0 and this point is x0 plus delta x. Okay? when we want to approximate u respect x at t and x0, we should use u at x0
أساتذة عندكم صوتها؟ شو ماكو صوت عندنا؟
ماكو أي صوت.
لا لا إنه هم چیز کلاس نبودیم.
Okay.
از همون قانون خانم شروع کن.
Okay. And I will repeat again. You suppose that u of u is a function of two variables t, x, and t. U is the function of two variables x and t. Okay. The domain of problem is a smaller than x smaller than b. This means the domain of x is the interval from a until b. Is the domain of x at this domain of a problem. And the t is start from t self x, t start from t0, and the interval for x is from a until b. Okay. If we use the first axis for x and use the second axis for t, we should use the point from a until b for the x. X is from a until b, okay? And t start from t0. Because t start from t0, the domain of this problem start from t self for t and from a until b for x. And this area is the domain of this problem. Is it okay? The first axis is for x and the second axis is for t. Okay? X is from a until b and t start from t0 and bigger than t0. For approximate solution, everybody listen to me. For approximate solution, we should discrete this domain of problem. ما باید این ناحیه رو گسسته کنیم. دقت کنید گسسته سازی. گسسته سازی means discretization. We should discrete this domain of problem. Okay? Discretization is the expression that you hear very time at this lesson. ما discretization رو ما گسسته سازی رو تو این درس زیاد استفاده می‌کنیم. اصطلاح گسسته سازی یعنی discretization. Okay? For discretization of x and t. For this goal, for this purpose, please see this diagram. We divide the interval a from a to b to n subintervals with a step size delta x equal to h. We divide interval AB into n subintervals with a step size delta x equal to h. x0 equal to we start from A. We start from A, that is equal to x0. And then use x1, x2, x3 in general, I minus 1. The next point is xi, and the next point is x subscript I plus 1. And then we have xn, that xn is equal to b. See this part. R is the start point of discretization of domain of x. We put R is equal to x0. And R plus h, and we have x1, and then x1 plus h, and we have x2, and then x2 plus h, and we have x3. And this process is continue, and finally we have x subscript n, and xn is equal to b, the end point of RB. The start point is A, and the end point is B. Is it okay?
Okay.
Until now, is it okay? For example, when we have the interval from 0 to 1, and with the step size h equal to delta x equal to 0.25, we have 0 is equal to x0. The next point is 0 plus 0.25 is 0.25. This point is x1, and then x1 plus 0.25 is 0.5 and is x2. Okay, and again 0.5 plus delta x, we have 0.75. This point is x3, and finally 0.75 plus h is 1, and 1 is x4. Okay?
Okay.
When h is 0.25, we have 5 mesh point. This point is called mesh point, discrete point, discretization point, mesh point. It is a unit for x, x1, x0, x1, x2, x3, and x4. Okay? But the point between, for example, x0 and x1, not compute this point. Not important in our computing. Okay, you can see this discretization of x in general at this diagram. Please see carefully and hear me carefully. Xf is equal to A, okay? The next point is x1. The next point is x2. And in general, we have x of I minus 1, x of x subscript I, and x subscript I plus 1. And finally, we have x n, that xn equal to b, okay? And the distance between each of 2 points is h. The distance between x0 and x1 is h. The distance between x1 is x2 is h or delta x. H equal to delta x. In general, the distance between x I minus 1 and x I again is h. And for 2 points, the distance between of them is h, okay? But this problem, addition of x, we have t, and t is important, and we should discrete the time, the t. For discretization the t, we use the step size delta t or k. We use the step size delta t equal to k for discretization of the t. At this time, we want to discretization t. T start from t self and the second dimension. If we use t self, t0 as a start point, by using delta t equal to k, we can obtain the t1. This distance is k or delta t. For the next point at the second dimension is t2, okay? And is sufficient to t1 plus k to have the t2. And when we plus the k to t2, we can see the t3. Is it okay? This is the discretization for t for 2 dimension. Is it okay?
Okay.
Please solve this problem. Can you see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. You suppose that, for an example, the domain of a problem is x interval for x is 0 from 0 until 2, and t start from 1. You suppose h or delta x is 0.5 and k or delta t equal to 1.2. Before you solve this problem, please see this diagram. When we start from t self, t0, and use delta t, we have this discretization at the axis of t. T0 is the first point at t-axis, and by plus T0 plus K, we have T1, and generally we have T subindex J minus 1. The next point, when we plus T J minus 1 plus K plus K, we have T J, and then by some T J plus K, we have T J plus 1. Okay? And when we use this discretization, this black point are called mesh point. Mesh point, mesh point, another mesh point, another mesh point, another mesh point. They are mesh points. They are mesh points. And we want to compute U only that at this mesh point. Only we want to compute U only at this mesh point, not another point. At this point, we cannot compute the U. 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 And we can compute the U only that this mesh point. These black points are mesh points. At these mesh points, we can use the U and compute the U. Okay? Is it okay for you? خانم طالب، اینو بچه میخوام بگم که ما وقتی گسسته سازی انجام میدیم فقط توی نقاط مشکی یو رو حساب میکنیم، دیگه بقیه جاها یو حساب نمیشه. یعنی مثل جواب واقعی نیست که بگیم در همه نقاط یو رو حساب میکنیم. ما فقط توی نقاط مشکی رنگ میخوایم یو رو حساب بکنیم. به این کار میگیم گسسته سازی و میخوایم توی نقاط مشکی رنگ یو رو حساب کنیم. لطفاً ترجمه کنید براشون.
تقول احنا راح ناخذ هو بكل الاحوال هسه هي حاليا عندها تجزئة الفترات اللي هي من x0 الى xn. عندنا هذين الفترات، وبالنسبة للتي هماتين الفترة بين x0 و x1 هذين نسميهن h، وبالنسبة إذا عندنا t راح نسميهن k، الحاصل الفرق بين الفترتين. وتقول النقاط اللي راح نستفاد من عندهن حاصل يعني بين x1 و x0 احنا راح ناخذ بس النقاط السود اللي موجودات عند النقطة هاي، يعني الفترة اللي بيناتهن ما راح نحسبهن، بس اللي على النقطة اللي السود اللي موجودة هنا قبالنا بس راح ناخذ المشتقة بالنسبة للنقطة، يعني اللي بين x1 و x2 ما راح ناخذهن اللي خلت عليهن x. أتوقع وصلت الفكرة.
Okay, is it clear for you? Every student, is it clear for you?
Yes.
Okay. And then we only compute the U value at the representative mesh point, means these black mesh points. Okay? Okay. The index of the point is very important. We can discuss about the index of this black point. I'm trying to erase this page. Okay. Please hear me and please attention to me. In the first axis, in the x-axis, the index of x is 0, 1, 2, 3, and etc. I minus 1, I plus 1 until x subscript n. And for t, we have t0, t1, t2, tj minus 1, tj, tj plus 1, and etc. Okay? For example, the first mesh point, I'm pointing to it. The first mesh point, the x of this point is x0, and the t of this point is t0. Okay, and the index for this point is 0 and 0. Okay, the next mesh point, the subscript or the index of x is 1, and the index of t is 0. Okay, at the index of this point is then we can use the I minus 1, and the 0 is the index for this point. Is it okay? Can you hear me? Please let me. And for this point, what about this point? What the index of this point? Please say to me about the index of this point. Is I and 0, because the index of x is I and the index of t is 0. Okay? The next point, the index of x is I plus 1 and the index of t is 0. And then the index of this point is I plus 1 and 0. Okay? And the last point at this row, the index of this point is n and 0. Okay? All of the point at 0, the second subscript is 0, because the second subscript return to the index of t. And the first index, the first subscript, change from 0 to n, because the first subscript is related to the index of x. Is it okay? Yes or no? Please say to me about the index of the point at the second row. Please say to me about the index of the mesh points at the second row. What about the index of index of the mesh points at second point, second row? It's for this point. For this point, what is the index of x? Please say to me.
X not T1.
The index of x is
X naught and T1.
x0. X0.
X0.
X0. For this point, what is the index of t?
1.
Please, all of them say. Please, all of them.
1.
1. Okay, is 1. Okay. And what about the index of this point? Every point, each point has 2 indexes. The first index return to the index of x, and the second index return to the index of t. The subscript of x or the index of x is 0, and the index of t of the subscript of t is 1. And then the index of this point that I'm pointing to this point is 0 and 1. Okay, 0 and 1. Okay.
Okay.
The next point. The next point, please say to me.
One
What is
and
the
one.
index of a very good? What is the index of x for this point? The index of x is 1. And also the index of t is again 1.
One.
And then for the index for this point is 1 and 1. Okay?
Okay.
And what about this point, the third point at the second row?
2 and 1.
2 and 1. Very good. 2 and 1. And the next point at the second row means satr. The column means sotun. 2 and 1. And this point continue. And what about this point? I'm pointing to this.
I minus 1 and 1.
Very good. This point, the index of this point is the first index. The first subscript is I minus 1 and 1. The next point is the index of next point is I and 1. The index of the next point is I plus 1 and 1. And the end of this point at the second row, the indexes of n and 1. If you be carefully about the indexes of this point at the second row, the second subscript, the second index of all of them is 1, 1 and 1, 2 and 1, I minus 1 and 1, I and 1, I plus 1 and 1, and finally n and 1. Means the all of points at the second row, the second index or the second subscript is 1. Okay?
Okay.
You suppose a third row means that T2. Okay? And let's draw a line for the third line for the third row. For this point that I draw them, please say the subscripts of this point at the third row. Please, all of them determine the subscript of the all points at the third row. Red point. Please, all of them answer to me.
0 and 2.
Very good. 0 and 2. The next point?
1 and 2.
And the next point?
2 and 2.
And 2 and 2. Okay. And what about other of the students? Mr. Emad Khalil, Mr. Adnan Salman, Miss Sima, and Miss Zainab is answering to me. And the other students, please answer me. Mr. Emad Khalil. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, yes.
Please answer me. Please determine the index of the red mesh point, the third row. I'm pointing to a point, to a mesh point, and please determine the subscript of this mesh point. What about the index of x, and what about the index of t?
2 1.
First, you should determine the index of x. What is the index of x for this point? This point, I'm pointing to this point. Can you see my pointer?
x المن الصفر والتي ايش قد المن للثانية بدون x ولا t، يعني صفر واثنين. توقع تريد يمكن.
First, you say the index of x, and then you say the index of t. Yes, and the other student 0, 2. And Mr. Emad Khalil, please answer me. Mr.
0 2 0.
0, 2. And what about the next point? This point. I'm pointing to this point. What about this point? What is the subscript of this point? This point is related to x1, okay? Please be careful. This point is related to x1. I mean, x1 and related to t2. خانم زینب لطفاً بهشون این رو توضیح بدین که هر نقطه‌ای که ما در نظر میگیریم تو صفحه، همون مش پوینت ها، هر نقطه‌ای که ما در نظر میگیریم یه x نظیر میشه و به یه t نظیر میشه. خب اولش اندیس t میشه اندیس دومش، یعنی هر نقطه دو تا اندیس داره. ببین x ها هر کدوم یه اندیس دارن، مثلا x0 x1 x2 هم هر کدوم یه اندیس دارن، t0 t1 t j منهای 1. ولی این نقاط داخل صفحه هر کدوم دو تا اندیس دارن، یه اندیس از x میگیرن یه اندیس از t میگیرن، هر کدوم یه اندیس از x یه اندیس از t میگیرن. کافی که از اون نقطه محور x ها وصل کنیم که اندیس x مشخص بشه، از اون نقطه محور t ها وصل کنیم که اندیس t مشخص بشه. این لطفا براتون توضیح بدیم ببینم حالا متوجه بشید.
تقول بالنسبة للإكسات والتيات، مثلا أنا من هسه أقرأ عندي x1 وبالنسبة للتي أقراها t1، يعني عندنا سب واحد إلهن بالنسبة إلهن. وإذا كانت نقطة التقاطع بين الx1 والt1 راح تحول لنا نقطة. النقطة راح يكون عندنا مو بس مثلا الx1 بس، يعني تحت الx بس واحد عندنا، بس بالنسبة للنقطة راح يصير عندنا أزواج مرتبة، لأن تقاطع الx1 والt1 راح يصير عندنا مثلا الx اللي بصف الx شنو عندنا x1 والt بصف الt شنو عندنا t1. راح يكون عندنا تقاطع النقطة الx1 والt1 راح يكون عندنا 1 و1. ما عليه راح آخذهم بدون اكسات والتيات، يعني عندنا 2 هسه أزواج مرتبة، بس إذا وحد هن الإكس والتي راح يكون عندنا بس 1. أوكي؟
أوكي.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zainab Taleb. And please, everyone that I say the name of you, please answer me. First, Mr. Adnan Salman. Can you hear me? I pointed to the mesh point, and you answer me the subscript of this point. This point, Mr. Adnan Salman, this point. You determine the subscripts of this point, the index of x and the index of t. I can't hear your voice, Adnan Salman. Mr. Adnan Salman, can you hear my voice? Okay. Maybe don't
خان
hear me.
باقرین خان
بله.
باقرین استاد عدنان نیستن هستن ولی تو راهن دارن برمیگردن از ایران عراق تو قطارن میگن خیلی صداتون رو واضح ندارن
آقای عدنان؟
بله بله
Okay, thank you. Mr. Emad Khalil, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Yes, I hear you.
Well, please answer me about the subscript at this point.
This
I'm
point,
pointing to this point. What are the subscript of this point?
T1 and x I plus minus
First
1.
x. First, you should say the index of x. What is the index of x? What is the index of x?
يعني ده تقول بدون أول شي بالبداية x وجوا الx تريده يعني
يعني مثلا 4 ب2 هيك
ايه بس بدون x تريده.
And this line is for t. What is the index of x?
x المن
What is
مثل x ال I minus 1.
ايه بدون x.
Okay.
I ناقص
I minus 1.
And what about the index of t?
T1.
بدون
okay.
t.
And what is the index of this point?
1 I minus 1.
First the index of x. I
minus 1.
Minus 1.
And
1.
And what?
1.
1. Okay. Mr. Emad Khalil, please answer the index of the another point. For example, this point. Please answer. Please obtain the subscript of this point.
Yes. N 1.
Very good. The index of this point is n and 1. First, we should say the index of x, and then we should set the index of t. The index of this point is n and
1.
Okay, very good. Miss Sima Hassan, what about this point? I'm pointing to this point. Please, why? Please say your reason. Why the index of this point is I minus 1 and j minus 1? Why you say the index of this point is I minus 1 and j minus 1?
نقطة تقاطع؟ غير تقول لي إياها؟
You can say in Arabic.
Point مش؟
This point. Why the indexes of this point is I minus 1 and j minus 1? Okay.
هاي هسه قالتها النقطة point مش point.
ايه شنو يعني I ناقص 1 و I ناقص 1
j ناقص
j minus 1.
If you connected this point to x-axis, this point connect to the x with subscript I minus 1, okay? If you connect this point to the x-axis, the x, then we have the x subscript I minus 1. And you connected this point to the t-axis. The index of t is j minus 1. And then the index of this point are I minus 1 and j minus 1. Okay?
Okay.
Is it okay for you? Is it clear for all of them? For all of you?
Yes.
The next one is I and j minus 1 because this point is connected to x and the subscript I, and this point also connect to the t subscript j minus 1. The next point is I plus 1 and j minus 1 because this point is connected to x I plus 1 and again connected to j minus 1. Okay? And finally, then the end point of this row of j minus y minus 1 row is, what about this point? Please answer me. What about this point? What the index of this point? The end point of the j minus 1 row. Please answer me about the index of this point. Very good. And j minus 1 because this point is connected to xn and also connected to t the first index is constant. Please see this part. I determine the column. Please attention to this column. If you be careful, you can see the first point at this column is, it has the 0 and 0, okay? The next point at this column is, it has the indexes 0 and 1. And the next point in generally, the first index is again 0 and the second index is j minus 1. The next point, the first index is 0 and the second index j. And the next point, the first index is 0
and j plus 1.
J plus 1. What is constant in this column? The first index or the second index?
لا صحيح.
For the points at this column, what index is constant? The first index or the second index? It's very clear. The first index is 0 for all of the points at this column. 0 and 0, 0 and 1, 0 and j minus 1, 0 and j, 0 and j plus 1, and etc. For all of them at this column, the first index is 0. Okay?
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And the next column I want to discuss it. We consider the next column, and we can see for the first point at this column, what is the two indexes for this point? For this point, what is the axis? What is the indexes?
1 and 0.
1 and 0. The next point?
1 and 1.
1 and 1. The next point?
1.
In general? 1 and j
minus 1.
minus 1. And the next? 1 and j. The next, again, 1 and j plus 1. What is constant for all of them at this column? The first index is constant or the second index is constant? For all of them, the first index is 1, okay? The first index for all of this point is 1. 1 and 0, 1 and 1, 1 and j minus 1, 1 and j, 1 and j plus 1. For all of them, the first index is 1, okay? And for this column, the first index is constant. خانم زینب اینو بهشون بگین که روی این ستون‌هایی که ما در نظر میگیریم، هر ستونی که در نظر بگیریم، اندیس اول همشون مثل همه. اندیس دومشون تغییر میکنه. اندیس اول همشون مثل هم دیگه، همشون مثلا یک هستن اینجا.
بله. تقول داتا شاهدة على تقريب شلون مصفوفة، يقول لك الأزواج المرتبة الموجودة على العمود الثاني كلهن واحدات، واللي يتغيرن الزوج الثاني اللي هي توقع الصفوف. أنا هيك افتهمته.
Is it clear for all of them, yes or no? Okay?
Okay.
Okay, okay.
Okay. And for example, in this column, at this column, the first index for all of them is I. The first point has I and 1, 0. The next, I and 1. I and j minus
1.
I and j. Again, I and j plus 1. I is constant. The first index is constant. And for each of columns, the first index for all of them is constant. Okay? Every student, this diagram is very important for you for this lesson. This diagram is very important. You should understand the index of point at each point at this plan, xt plan. This is xt plan. Okay? Please answer to me. I'm drawing some mesh point, and you should determine the index of this point. If this point has the first index I and the second index J, please determine the indexes of the other points. خانم زینب به بچه بگین که نقطه وسط اندیسش آیا جی هست. همتون به اندیس بقیه نقاط مشخص کنید توی برگه، بعد از حلاتون عکس بگیریم برام بفرستین.
اوكي. تقول هسه احنا عندنا هاي النقطة اي وجي، حلوا الباقيات ذن النقاط الأربعة اللي متصلة بيهن. حلوا بورقة ودزوا لها إياها على الخاص. اوكي.
يا هنا نقاط زينب قصدها.
هاي قبالك، هاي الحمراء.
در شخصي برام.
عندنا هاي النقطة الوسطية اسمها اي جي، اوكي. وهسه تريد 4 نقاط اللي عليهن علامة سؤال. صورة اي والفوق صح. يلا دزوا الصورة.
يعني نكتب ناقص اي ناقص جي هيجي.
اي اتوقع هيك، هو هيك. لا بس الاي من هو العمود.
تمام تمام.
اي بعد غير هيك مباشرة. صح. ودي نسوي ازواج مرتبة لو شنو؟ شلون؟ لو مثل ما سوتها هي. يا انا مو هيك. ما هي سويت. اوكي خل اخلصها حتى ادز. هو صح صح مش مدرينا غير صح. هي وين راحت؟ شوف سان هيك سويتها.
Have you sent to me? Have you sent your answer to me?
ما ادري هي قالت
نیست زینب طالب، خانم طالب باید برای هر
بله.
نقطه شما 2 تا اندیس بنویسید. شما فقط یه اندیس نوشتید. و نوشتین تی جی به اضافه 1 ایکس آی منهای 1. برای هر کدوم باید 2 تا اندیس بنویسین. شما یکی نوشتین. اصلاحش کنید.
باش. بسیم.
Please write your name when you send me your answer.
ايه توقع خطأ. أنا هم. ها.
Miss Sima, the answer of Miss Sima is correct. Okay. I solve this problem, this exercise. Please pay attention to me and don't send me your answers. For each point, you determine 2 indexes. One
Yeah,
and
that's
first for x and one and second for t. Okay? For the central point, it is the central point. Okay? This central point is connected to xi and also connect to tj. Okay? Then the x for this point is I. The x for the previous point is x I minus 1. Okay? And the x for the next point is x I plus 1. When for this point, we have a tj. For the previous row, the t is tj minus 1. And for next row, we have a tj plus 1. Okay? And then for this point and for this point, j is constant. Okay? For the right hand side and the left hand side point for j is constant. The previous point has I minus 1 and j. Okay? And for the next point, we have I plus 1 and j. For this row, j is constant.
Yes.
For all points at this point, j is constant. I minus 1 and j, I and j, I plus 1 and j. Okay?
Oh.
And for this column, 3 points are at this column, and the first index is constant. I and the j minus 1. The next is I and j, and the next is I and j plus 1. Okay? Is this clear for all of you?
Yes, yes.
And the other exercise. I'm erasing this step for the next exercise. If the indexes of this point are 2 and 4, please determine the indexes of the other points. For these 2 points, you determine the indexes. Okay?
اوكي، يلا حلوا هذا السؤال.
خانم طالب دقت کنید دوباره. خانم طالب نقطه 0 و 5 دقت کنید که اصلاح بشه. خانم طالب و خانم سیما هستن، درسته؟ Very good. Okay. I solve this. I will solve this exercise. Mr. Adnan, please, Mr. Emal Khalil, please solve this problem fast, not after us. Okay. The indexes of one point is determined, and we should determine the indexes of the other points. Okay. For the row, the second subscript is constant. Okay. For this point and this point, the second index is 4, and this point is the previous from 2 and 4, and the indexes of this point is 1 and 4. And the previous point, the indexes are 0 and 4. Okay? And what about this point and this point? The central point is 1 and 4. And the first index for all of them should be 1. The indexes of this point is 1 and 3. And this point, the index is, the first index is 1 and the second index is 5. Okay? Is it clear for all of them?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Okay. Okay. For the we can go to the rest for the 15 minutes. It's the break time, and then we'll come to the class. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
It's the break time for 15 minutes. At the problem
Alan.
Okay. At that problem that I have been sent to you, we have the. Please let me choose the pencil. We have that u, excuse me, x I have x is from 0 until 2 with the step size h or delta x equal to 0.5 and t is bigger and equal to 1 with the step size k equal to 0.2. Okay? We start from 0 for x. The first x is the x0 is equal to 0. The next point is x1. Okay, I erased 2. The next point is x1, and because the h equal to 0.5, the x1 is 0.5. Okay. The next point, the next x is x2 equal to 1. Because the step size is 0.5. Okay. Are you here? Yes or no?
Yes.
The next x is x3 and is equal to 1.5. And the final x is x4 and is equal to 2. Okay. And for t, the first t means the t0 equal to 1. The next t, t1 equal to 1.2 because the step size for t is 0.2. The next t is t2 and equal to 1.4. The next is T3 equal to 1.6 and etc. Okay. This is the x with subscript and the coordinate of x, and these are the t mesh point for t and the coordinate for the t part of the coordinate. Okay. For the geometry, I can erase this page, or I should use the blank page. I try to use the blank page. I should share my whiteboard. Please let me to share the whiteboard. Start a new whiteboard. I'm trying to share my whiteboard, okay? I need some space for writing. Yes or no? Okay. I draw two axes, one for x and the other for t. Okay. We have x0 is equal to 0, and this point is for x0 equal to 0. The next point is x1 is equal to 0.5. The next point is x2 equal to 1. The next point is x3 equal to 1.5. And finally, the end point is x4 is equal to 2. Is it okay until now? Are you present? Yes or no?
Yes.
Is it okay until now? Yes, okay. And for t start from t1, and we have t0 is equal to 1. The next t is t1 equal to 0.2, excuse me, 1.2. 1.2 because the step size for t is 0.2. T2 is equal to 1.4, and the other t is constructed at similar way. Okay? And our mesh points are, first is this point, this point, this point, then is this point, then is this point. Is it okay? Then is this point, and then is this point. This is at the same row, the first row. The next mesh point at the second row, I'm drawing them. Okay?
Okay.
And the next row, the points are this and this and this and this point, and finally this point. Okay? And for the other t, we continue this process. The first point at the first row is, I use a P for this point, or you a P for present this point, is P 0 and 0, okay? The next is P 1 and 0. The next is P 2 and 0. The next is P 3 and 0. And the final point at this row is P 4 and 0. We can see at this row the second index is 0 for all of point. Okay? We go to the next row. The first point at the second row is P. The index of x is 0 and the index of t is 1. P7, P0 and 1. The next point is P1 and 1. Okay? The next point is P2 and 1. The second index of all of them is 1, 2 and 1. The second point is P3 and 1. Again, 1 for the second index. And the final point at this row is P4 and 1. Is it okay for all of you? Is it clear? We go to the next row. For the first point at the third row, we have P0 and 2. The next is P1 and 2. All of them have the 2 for the second index. For the next point, we have P2 and 2. The next point is P3 and 2. And the final point is P4 and 2. Are you understand the indexes of this point at the plan X and T? Yes?
Yes.
And I'm going to determine the index of this point. For the first point, we have, what is the coordinates of this point? X is 0 and T is 1. 0 and 1. The next, P1 and 0, the coordinates of this point is, the X is 0.5 and 1. Okay? Okay.
1.
I write here P2 and 1 has the coordinates as the X is 1 and the T is 1 again. P3, excuse me, 2 and 0. P3 and 0 is, the X is 1.5 and the T is also 1. P4 for 0 is the x coordinate is 2, and again the t coordinate is 1. Is it okay?
Okay.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
We go to the next row. For the next row, P0 and 1 is the x is 0 and the t is 1.2. And the rest of the point I write the bottom of the page. P1 and 1 is the first coordinate 0.5 and the t coordinate is 1.2. Okay, and for the other points the coordinates are similar. Do you need to write the coordinates of the other points, yes or no?
Yes,
Do you
yes.
do you understand this part, or yes or no?
Yes, yes, yes.
Continue this continue my writing or no? If you understand the coordinate of this point, I cannot write these coordinates. If you need that I write this coordinate, please let me. Do you write these coordinates, yes or no? Do you understand? خانم طالب بپرسین که لازم هست بقیه نقاط رو بنویسم یا دیگه خودتون بلد هستین؟
يحتاج أكتب النقاط الباقيات؟ إي صحيح، إيش بيش صحيح حليناها. هي تقول بعد ما يحتاج، هي تقول بعد ما يحتاج أكتبها. خان باقي میگن نمیخوایم دیگه، هم براتون حلش رو فرستادیم. منم براتون فرستادم دومشو.
فقط میگم نکته‌ای که حالا کار شما و خانم سیما هستن مشکلش این بود که نقاط رو در
باشه.
Yes, it's okay, it's okay.
درست براتون فرستادیم دومی، حل دومش.
Yes, it's very good. Very good. Excellent. Okay. I continue my lesson by sharing my file of the book.
خان باقری،
بله.
اگه زحمت نمیشه برامون کتابو برامون میفرستین رو واتساپ گروپ پی دی اف.
براتون کتاب فرستادم قبلا، از رو همون دارم درس میدم.
ندیدم.
خیلی همون جلسه اولی که شروع کردم، جلسه دوم که
اول من نبودم.
جلسه اول فایلش فرق میکنه، اونو فرستادم، دوباره جلسه دوم هم فایل رو فرستادم. حالا بازم میفرستم، مشکل نداره.
برام بفرست اگه زحمت نمیشه. دستتون در نکنه.
خب الان شما سفر دارین؟
نه نداریم.
No. Of the mesh points is 0. Or when we are in the second row, the mesh points, all of the mesh points have the 1 for the second index. And at the column, the first index of all of point is constant. For example, in the first column, the first index of all of mesh point is 0, and the first point of the first index of the all of points is 1. If we use this formula for the point, for example, I and n, it is the name and optional. I use I and J, I for X and J for T, and you can use I and N, I and K, J and K. It is optional. They are optional, and you can use every index that you like. At this book, use index I for X and N for T. When we suppose the point with the index of I and N, this is the I and N. The next point I and N. The indexes are I and N. The next point has the I and I plus 1 and N. The N is constant. I plus 1 and N. The previous next has the I minus 1 and N. Okay? And when we approximate the ux, the first derivative of u respect x, we should use the point with I plus 1 and N, and use P with the indexes I and N. This is the forward approximate, and u respect x at I and N can compute by using u I plus 1 and N minus u I and N over h or delta x. This is a first forward approximation for derivative of u respect x at the mesh point P with the indexes I and N. You can write u I and N, or you can write u I and N. Both of them is correct. You can write I in the bottom and N top of u, and you can write u I and N. Both of them is correct, and you can use each of them that you like. Okay, this is the first approximate for first derivative of u, and it is the approximation forward. It's the first order forward differential, the difference approximation to u respect x at Tn and xi. Okay, this is the first formulation that you understand. Okay, are you present? Okay. For the next formulation, we can write the Taylor theorem, but this time by using minus delta x placed by delta x. Please,
أنا ضيع.
لا.
please attention to me. Please write the Taylor theorem by using 4 terms at the right hand side. In 217, use only 2 terms of the Taylor theorem, but I want from you that you write the Taylor theorem by using 4 terms at the right hand side of the theorem. Please say this expression and send me at WhatsApp. خانم زینب نگاه کنید، میخوام قضیه تیلور رو با دلتا ایکس منفی با 4 جمله برام بنویسید.
باشه الان
همین الان. بله. قضیه
بله.
چند وقت بریم؟ اوکی.
بگو.
همین بنویسیم بعد کلاس تمامش میکنیم. پس لطفا بهشون بگین قضیه تیلور رو با دلتا ایکس منفی با 4 جمله برام بنویسین بفرستین.
اوكي. تقول هاي القانون اللي موجود هنا نقبالك وينه؟ يا هو قضية تايلور.
با منهای دلتا ایکس نه با دلتا ایکس.
احنا مو كنا ما اخذنا اكس زائد دلتا اكس نوت زائد دلتا اكس، مو قلنا نقدر نكملهن الى 4. هذا هسه تريد 4 حدود نكتبهن حسب قانون تايلور. وين هو ابو الان؟
We replace minus delta x instead of
خان باقي فرمولة تايلور إنه دوشش دهمه راح تكتب لنا قانون تايلور. وين راحت؟ لسه تقول كتبوا القانون تايلور 4 حدود بالنسبة للآن، بس الشرط مالتنا يكون اكس نوت ناقص دلتا اكس. هذا أبو الناقص وينه؟ أبو 2.7 يمكن، مو؟ وينكم موجودين؟ لا ويا هو القانون تايلور تعرف ايش قد عيب. إذا يمكن كان بي زائد، هذا هسه قالت عن ناقص. لا قبل شوية قالت لا أنا ما أدري أنا وين هسه، ما أعرف. لا قبل شوية من قالته وكتبته بأن تربيع ودي إكس تربيع ودي إكس تكعيب دي إكس أس 4.
نعم. دوشيش
بالزينة